Hello, 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 and good evening, everyone. Welcome to our newest installment of PMOTV. Of course, I'm the host, PMO Vontae, and I am very honored to have today's guest. Today, in lieu of what's going on with the country and the need and desire of DEI work across the world, I present to you the president, Mrs. Deirdre Rouse, and the vice president, Sean Palmer of the ABCC. If you don't know what that is, you'll get familiar with them as the show go on. But today I have these two very special guests. I have, if y'all listen to the show, y'all know I mention Palmer quite often. Palmer's he's like my OG. So of course, I give him high praise and people in his company also. And and also I have a great time with Miss Ross also. We went to Charleston a couple weeks ago. Had a really good time. She looked out on everything with knowledge and a good laughing partner to have when we get some good food from Hannibal's and everything. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started, and I'm gonna thank y'all for coming to the show. How y'all feeling tonight?
Feeling well, and one of my favorite words is grateful.
Yeah, excited about the election as I see folks voting, and we just had anniversary at the church today, so that was really good, and I'm hopeful as well.
Which serving today at the church, food wise.
Ooh, chicken fried
That was
and baked, ribs, mac and cheese, green beans, rolls, red velvet cake, blueberry cobbler, a chocolate cake, vanilla cake, and then like a lemon thing.
I see. Yeah, I saw the pictures today, and I said, "Well, they had a feast today."
We did. It was a really good. As they say, we had a time. We had a time.
So I guess I'll get started with the show and everything. So, like I mentioned earlier, how a couple weeks ago we did go to Charleston. You know, a lot of people don't know this, but I love Charleston, and technically I'm honorary Gullah. But what I'm not gonna do, I normally have my Gullah language, but I'm gonna save it for today. No, Palmer says don't do it. I ain't gonna do my Gullah. I'm gonna do my Gullah tongue at all.
Brother Palmer shaking his head.
Yeah, such a
But
hater.
on your since you mentioned the Gullah folk today, I want to say as somebody who serves on the National Park Service's Gullah Geechee Commission that there was a tragedy yesterday during a Gullah Geechee festival on Sapelo Island. We had two commissioners present. At least right now, what happened, what we know is that one of the bridges broke and a number of people went into the water. And so the official reports say somewhere between 7 and 10 people lost their lives. They're still looking for folks, but like we had two commissioners that were on the island. So you might be reading about something happening down in Sapelo in the coming days. If there haven't been articles that already hit, we found out yesterday evening, and the tragedy continues to unfold. They say you could hear people screaming from the water as they fell into the sea. So yeah, as we think about Gullah Geechee culture, coming off those islands into and traveling back and forth from the islands over into the mainland is what it's called, has always been a treacherous track. And so, but we want to send up prayers and good wishes to the family and friends who've lost loved ones. And so I didn't want to start on a somber note, but I want to say that there are always things happening in the Gullah corridor that are sometimes tied to both tragedy and hope. And so just keep your Gullah folk in prayer. And we'll talk a little bit about who Gullah Geechee folk are in a little bit if there are listeners who don't know.
And Sean, let's make sure that we make mention and pay honor to those individuals at the ABCC conference, since you're more familiar with it, being a part of the board and the organization. And I think that also plays to you talking about how there's hope and unfortunately tragedy in this particular case, having adequate funding to keep
Mhm.
bridges and things of that way, gateways, in the best pristine shape, so that this type of tragedy would be less likely to take place.
Yep. Yeah, infrastructure is an issue partially because the land is so valuable,
Mm-hmm.
and what a lot of city, state communities do is they'll give them resources for the land, if they give up the land,
Right.
because the land is, it's coastal land. And so they want to build their Hiltons and Hyatts and Marriotts on the land and the townhomes, and they want to do all of those things. And so, as we head to the coast, as we come down, yeah, for our Gullah Geechee conference, for our ABCC conference, we will be talking about, the metaphor of land and cultural centers in a lot of ways. And I know Vontae hadn't gotten there, PMO Vontae hadn't gotten there, but we're gonna head there with you, Vontae. We probably, if you let us, we'll go on and move you there quicker than you want to.
But the one thing about me, I'm always down for a trip, so I don't mind. Yes, but I guess that's a great segue to the first question. So, can y'all give me, as being president and vice president of ABCC, can y'all give me kind of like the historical context of ABCC, like how does it work, how did they come to be, all that good? Give me the deets if possible.
Deidre, this is a Deidre question.
Well, the as you probably know, we'll say it out in case people are not familiar with ABCC. It's the acronym for Association for Black Culture Centers, and it was founded by Dr. Fred Hord. Dr. Fred Hord founded the ABCC back in 1988. And he's also written, I call it the Bible on Black Culture Centers book. And he, along with several colleagues who were doing culture center work, since most of the Black culture centers usually started somewhere in the mid 60s, some may have started a little bit earlier, but most of them started in the mid 60s, the earlier ones to about the mid 70s. And they recognized the need that even though we had these Black culture centers on the predominantly white institution campuses, we needed a culture, we needed a family, we needed a place where people could come and talk about ideas, theories, systems, family, to be able to support one another, because most of these culture centers were created, what word am I looking for? They were created out of,
Protest.
thank you. That's the word I'm looking
Yeah.
for. I was,
Protest.
yeah.
As integration happened in the
Mm-hmm.
1960s, one of the things that Black students demanded, and other students as well, because there were folks who in solidarity, was that they demanded approximately 3 or 4 major kind of outputs on predominantly white campuses across the nation. And so Black culture, what they were called originally, were Black houses, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the students had a gathering place in the same way that many of our IFC fraternities and sororities had, in the same ways that church related organizations had. And so they wanted a place that was safe. They also asked for the development of Black faculty, because Black students enter the campuses before Black faculty and Black administrators come to the campuses. A lot of that came out of the protest. And then African American studies, right? So those three or four outputs. So staff, faculty, the study of African American people, and the cultural centers. So these spaces are what we might call activist spaces.
Yes.
Like, they didn't just come because the school was like, oh my God, we have Black students here. Like, let's do something for them. If you read back in most schools' newspapers, as Black students are integrating, it was difficult for those first, 5, 1, 2, 4, 8 students. And some of those students were in places that had, in order to go to school there, the school was located in a sundown town, or you had to drive through Klan territory. And so the Black cultural centers really emerged in the crucible of history as a place to provide hope and to provide sanctuary for students of African descent.
And in some of those places, to add to what Sean just eloquently described, in some of those places, like in Carrollton, Georgia, the first Black student had to be, even though she was a more, what we would call a non traditional student, over the age of 25, had to be escorted to her classes for safety purposes. Yeah, so just a lot to think about of those who paved the way for what we now have. And I know you're going to talk a little bit more about the state of culture centers in 2024. But in because several of those culture centers that started in the mid 60s up into the 70s, and of course the newer ones came about in the 90s and the 2000s.
Yeah,
And you may wonder, 1990s and the 2000s, why do we still need those culture centers?
yeah,
Well, when we look at the state of diversity, equity, and inclusion now, we can see why we need those culture centers still, and
Yeah.
how they play a vital role in the survival and offering the matriculation of our students of color, particularly African American or Black students.
yeah, yeah. I was just gonna echo what Deirdre would say is that in this moment, like even in the 2024, there are schools that have 3%, 2%, 1%, 4% Black students, and those students need a cohesive community that does not terrorize them. And what we find, even in the middle of this kind of boom towards HBCUs, historically Black colleges, and what we might call MSIs, minority serving institutions, that Black cultural centers make it possible for a student, faculty or staff member, to have a thoughtful, connected community and to have a really good relationship. But for sure, on the student side, they ensure that graduation is happening. They ensure that that every offering at the university isn't related to white students and white folks, and that is not the only set of offerings on those campuses. And they're under attack, quite. I mean, quite hostily in this moment, in a way that I would argue hasn't been as hostile since the multicultural movement.
Sorry, everyone's still going on about it. But that's definitely a lot to say. And also, Sean, I think you made a good point too, because I know you mentioned how need for Black spaces amongst the students and faculty. But as a person, I know when I first moved to Wilmington, so I know I stumbled across the Open Center when you were the director at the time. And I'm always just grateful for the love the Open Center has given me, the connection through the university, the community connection aspect, and also being labeled as a community partner as years had went on. So of course, I always wanted to be thankful of that space in there. But I know I had a couple of questions to ask you guys about ABCCs in general. So basically, like, how many centers are associated with the association?
Well, we have about 100 affiliates, 58 active centers, and it's been 35 plus years of service where we are continuing to find different measures and being flexible as well as adaptable, but still adhering to the ideals as Sean so eloquently described for the Association for Black Culture Centers. And since Sean had mentioned that we know, and you too, that DEI is under attack, I do not mind saying that some of the Black culture centers that are on the PWI campuses are under attack in the sense that funding being cut, staff being cut, centers being totally dismantled, whether they are a named center or not. So a lot of different systemic practices are going other way, going by the wayside, but you still have so many who are in the fight. I think about this quote that I love from Coretta Scott King, that freedom is won with every generation. So we can never just sit on our laurels and think, oh, okay, they did the work then. This is a continuous process.
Yeah.
I think, that kind of showed the direction I was going to go with the show originally. But of course, before we even get to that conversation, I actually, me personally, I love hearing about people's journey to when they first started to where they're at now. And that with you two being two illustrious professionals in cultural center work, I just want to kind of get a background, like where did it all start from you guys? From the first day, from your hometowns, whether you from Charleston, whether you from South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, your hometowns. the journey that you have to get here? It's like your home background, where you guys go to school at, majors,
Hmm?
your line of work through the years.
You can go ahead, VP.
Okay. Okay, so I was going. You got to let the sister, Madam President, is dope. So we want to let Madam President start, but she's cleared the floor. So I'll say this: I am Gullah Geechee diaspora, but my family is primarily from Lexington and Columbia, South Carolina. Oldest of seven, grew up in a predominantly white Republican, one of the most Republican at the time, red areas in the state of South Carolina, and ran to Minnesota as fast as I could. Wanted to get out of town, as one of my former students said, and try to be in a much more liberal space. So I ended up in Walls's neck of the woods in St. Paul, Minnesota, at a small school called McAllister College, where where the music group Sounds of Blackness was born. And if you are familiar with the Black Panther franchise, you might be familiar with Denai Guerrero, who was a classmate of mine. If you are familiar with international politics, you might be familiar with former UN Secretary Kofi Annan. And so all of those folks are a part of the McAllister background. I went to a school that had a multicultural center that once had a Black house, but had developed a appreciation for multiculturalism. Worked in the cultural center, majored in English, double minors in African American studies and religious studies. Realized that probably wasn't the most healthiest environment because of the level of racism on our campus. When I tell that story, I tell the story of walking the classroom through the snow and cars of students in trucks and vans driving through the snow and calling us the N-word. And in many ways, those experiences radicalized me to be an anti-racist and, a DEI person, but definitely an activist. I ended up at Clark Atlanta for my first master's in African and African American studies, which sharpened my skills. Worked in and thought I was going to be an HBCU administrator for most of my career, and then left, answered a calling to the ministry at Tabernacle Baptist Church in Augusta, Georgia. Shout out to Charles Goodman and my people there. And then loved Payne College, but thought I detoured over to Duke University, where I met the love of my life. And my pedigree from student affairs, student activities was treated very well. So I had a number of jobs. One of those jobs was working in the Mary Lou Williams Center for Black Culture. And that was almost 20 years ago. So, I've worked in Black cultural centers for primarily 14 years. Been in higher ed for 20 years. This is my 20th year in higher ed, and have a really profound love for cultural center work. It is my passion work. It is the work I'm working on in terms of my PhD. My dissertation will probably be on cultural centers and their role in developing students. I mentor a lot of cultural center directors. I've been involved in ABCC since I was a director. When I have run cultural centers, I tell my staff, like, our home is not NASPA, it's not NASAP, it's not NCORE. Our home is the Association for Black Cultural Centers, because these particular sets of individuals understand intimately what is in the pudding. That's one. Two, the reason we are also at ABCC, because working in Black cultural centers is not necessarily something you step on to get to your next level. And in those other spaces, very often people will say, "Oh, you work in Black centers? Oh, that's so cute. What's your next move?" And the question is stewarding Black students not enough? That's what I always come back to. And for me, my joy and pride starts with like thinking about the way in which Ella Baker trained students at SNCC in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, are the ways in which I hear education, civil rights activists talk about holding the doors open for the next generation. And so those are the two things that, if you ask me my philosophy in education, it's about training leaders to be activists and activists to be leaders, and those to be educated in these doors, and to remember that it is a privilege to go to college, and that our job after we leave up out this mug is to be like what Du Bois said, is to hold the doors open for the next generation to come through. So that's where I'm at. Deirdre?
All right. Thank you, Brother Sean. Let's see, where do I begin? Well, I'll begin with Sean met the love of his life at Duke. I met the love of my life in high school. I have always been surrounded by African American or Black culture because I went to Boggs Academy, which was one of the preparatory, predominantly Black private high schools. Before integration, there were several Black boarding high schools. There was Mather Academy in South Carolina, there's Piney Woods, there's Laurinburg Institute, it was in Laurinburg, North Carolina, started in 1904. There was a Boggs Academy in Keysville, Georgia, which is where my dad taught school. So we moved there when I was 16 years old. But before that, we lived in Laurinburg. So my dad and the people in my family who were afforded the opportunity to go to college went to HBCUs. So I'm a product of HBCUs. Most of the people in my family went to HBCUs. So my dad taught primarily his whole teaching career as a part of his ministry and mission at predominantly Black boarding high schools. So these schools, he taught at Laurinburg Institute, he taught at Boggs Academy, those types of places where you were definitely molded, and the staff as well as the faculty at those institutions really nurtured you and prepared you really not just for college, but just for life. I graduated from Boggs Academy, went to Spelman College. And my dad, like I said, most of the people in my family are from North Carolina, so they went to what was then St. Augustine College, Shaw University, North Carolina A&T, Fayetteville State, those types of institutions. Left there, I studied psychology and history. Left there and got a master's in Georgia State. That was totally eye-opening for me because I hadn't been in too many environments with mainly white individuals. So looking at, I guess, that culture was definitely eye-opening to me, and I was even more grateful for the culture that I was groomed and nurtured and grew up in. And one of the things that inspired me, particularly from high school and on through college, was the nurturing and tough love and caring environment. For instance, when we were at Boggs, in order to graduate, you had to do a 6-minute memorized oration of a topic that you had to study in order to graduate. You did that your junior year. In case you didn't pass, you had to do it again your senior year. So those types of things really molded me because when I left the school system in Scotland County, North Carolina, I thought I was so smart, y'all. I got to Boggs Academy. I'm like, man, everybody here smart. So it was real eye-opening. I thought I wanted to be a clinical psychologist where I saw people from 8 to 5. But once I started at Georgia State, I decided I really wanted to be with people on a different level. So I went more of the social work aspect. So I worked with different populations, and those populations were populations that I gravitated towards, of those who would probably be those who were left out in society. So before going the route of academia, I did a lot of case management, working with those who were chronically mentally ill, those who were homeless. Now the politically correct term is unhoused. Working with those who are living with HIV, working with those who are juveniles, working with those who have substance abuse problems, working with those who suffer from Alzheimer's disease. So I work with those populations probably for about 15 years before coming into academia. So when I came into academia by way of teaching gerontology, that's probably my first love. By teaching gerontology classes, my mindset was totally different than my colleagues whose training was primarily academia, because I was accustomed to thinking, okay, we have this particular problem or situation. What is the solution? I wasn't accustomed to having 15 meetings to make one decision. because I was accustomed to working with individuals who would say, I look, Miss Rouse, my light's getting ready to get turned off at 5 o'clock. It's 4:15. Are you gonna be able to give me the $25 voucher to keep my lights on and call the people in time? So when I came into academia and we're meeting to meet, that was very frustrating to me of how and I was like, that's just not real world. And one of the things I implemented in my classes was one of my next loves is the community. Community involvement is key in my opinion. So one of the things I had people doing in my classes was community service. I even had parents to call me because I called it community service, and I didn't realize that was a term for people who had some run-ins with the law where they had to do community service, and so parents didn't want their wanted to be labeled community service because their kids are not criminals. But long story short, I came into cultural center work because one of the black faculty at the University of West Georgia saw what I was doing in terms of the community and doing community service and working with the students through the classroom. Now it's called service learning. And he said, hey, we are starting this new center and I would love for you to come and be my coordinator. And I was like, okay, well, what do I have to do? And so he told me, I was like, oh, I could do that. So I started off as a program coordinator and he retired. I became the director eventually of it was more of a multicultural center, but eventually it was called the Center for Diversity and Inclusion. And so I did that for about 10 years at the University of West Georgia, in addition to teaching gerontology or in the sociology area at the university, as well as being a advisor for the Black Student Alliance for 10 years.
That definitely is a lot, and I do agree with you. I know for many different years I've done a lot of case management work when it comes to like student underserved, whatever terminology they want to use. So I can just imagine how that jump was. Granted, that it might be our case, the people in our cases to be, high need, high everything. But I can see the frustration of back to back meetings every day. It's funny now, and it's funny. But me looking at it now, I imagine that is a lot more. Well, what you do currently, what you do now, definitely is a lot more. Boom, like on the go, very busy, very high active, high activity. But yeah, I think that I love it. I love your upbringing because it's kind of just I love like the fluidity of your journey, if that makes sense. I highly from that level to working there. Okay, okay. So we're gonna take a little back seat now. And then y'all gave us your life story already. So we're gonna one thing I like to do for sure, especially like, with my friends, I like to kind of like of course I know I look at like for instance Sean Palmer is like one of my favorite people in the entire world. So of course we often look at him like he's Superman. But also my friends like, oh Sean Palmer talk to us. Sean Palmer is regulated. And I'm like, Sean Palmer is a regular individual, like man, like he chill out like I chill out. With y'all being high professionals in your field, I kind of make something more relatable for the culture as a whole. So right now I'm gonna move this to my put me on section. I'm gonna move this to my put me on section. So for my put me on section, I ask just a series of questions like mood checks, what are you listening to, who are you reading, what you watching on TV, and all that stuff. But with you guys being so busy, I want to check in with you guys mentally. So my mood check question for y'all is like, from a scale of 1 to 5, how are you feeling? 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest. How are we feeling today?
Today I am feeling a 5, and I try my best to be at 4 or 5 every day because I am often around a lot of genarians and nonagenarians and centenarians. And what they tell me all the time is that they're happy to be above the ground in their right mind. So I just think about what complaints do I have, really.
Amen.
And then on a day that I'm having a rough day, I try to think about people like our ancestor Harriet Tubman. Man, this is a piece of cake compared to trying to get people on that railroad.
Okay. Okay. Because you can't free them. They don't want to go.
That's right.
They want to be saved. Don't save them.
So I'm doing as my mama say when I call her every day. She lives in Raleigh, North Carolina. Hey,
I love that. I'm probably between a 3.5 to 4.5, somewhere in that range, just because there's a lot of transition here in the state of North Carolina in terms of what is happening around diversity and inclusion. So there has been a lot of sadness around the spaces across the state. And there's a lot of storytelling that needs to be told around what has happened here that has been kind of behind the backs of North Carolinians. And so I would say today is a good day. I enjoyed service. But I am in a period of transition. And so sometimes I was like with Deirdre, like as Deirdre talked about, I just have a beautiful community that I get to rely on. So when I am struggling, I have a lot of friends in my life and family members and support mechanisms, including my amazing wife and child, who remind me that some of what we dealing with is just raggedy. Like it's not like it's just raggedy stuff, and it doesn't mean as much as we think, right? Like it's just a part of life. And so, but I am blessed and I am grateful for every opportunity. And I'm interested to see how God turns things around. Like I'm a man of faith. So like, I am just interested to see how things get turned around, because I really do believe better days are coming, just to think about the gospel music of Leandria. So,
woo.
shout out. Shout out. It's a Sunday, so you're going to get a little
That's right.
praise and worship.
That's right. Better days are coming. Love that.
Yeah, and thank you for that musical plug in. So this will actually will transition us to my next part of this section. So this is my put me on section right here. So my put me on section, Miss Deirdre, because I know you kind of new to this. I know I like to ask people like who are they listening to, like who you listen to like musically, what are you watching on TV, like what show you like which Tyler Perry shows you watching, which Greenlee shows you watching, like who should watch these shows, and also too like what's like a hobby like you like to do. I have friends who are taking up surfing now, who are kayaking, who are looking into real estate.
Ooh.
So yeah, so this is my put me on section. So Mrs. Rouse, put me on. Who you listening to? What you watching? What you doing?
Well, let's see. I'll tell you what I have been listening to the last couple of days. I love listening to Denise Times. I don't know if you are familiar with her.
Mm-hmm.
I will throw in a plug. She sings more probably jazz, like um,
Mm-hmm.
a Sarah Vaughan, a Nina Simone, that type of music. But she's out of Missouri. I like just Charlie and I just went to see her in Atlanta at City Winery, and I also love listening to testimonies. Man, I love
No, a
listening to.
testimony Terry and service lady.
I love listening to testimonies. I was listening to it was somewhat of a testimony. I was listening to Vicky Winans. I was listening to what's his name, James Fortune. I was listening to old Shirley Caesar's song about the two sons. One is a doctor, the other one just kind of is. And the doctor got too high for his britches, basically, as the old folks would say. So that's kind of what I've been listening to these last couple of days. But what Sean said, he hit on something. Stories need to be told. That's why I love testimonies, because that's really what it is people
Yeah.
telling their story. That's what a
Yeah.
testimony is. And in terms of my hobbies, different hobbies, I love the holidays, Christmas holidays, right? So I'm one of those Christmas movie people. But right before this cast, I was out fishing with my son in the paddle boat. Snagged a couple things. He snagged a couple of bass, and mine popped off, but I got a crappie. So I like
Crap.
fishing and talking.
And she got to run a
Oh,
conference. She has a conference right now. We gotta pull a conference together. So we got a few weeks to do it. But
Yeah.
yes.
yeah.
You know, we all definitely get that done. But one more before I move on to Palmer, with with your love for Christmas movies and all, what is the greatest Christmas movie of all time?
Ooh.
I don't know what the great. Let me see.
You can give me three. You can give me like a good three. Just give me one
I
Indian
don't
type.
know if I can give you one.
And also like what would we consider Christmas movie? Like
You
the
got to
Preacher's
come
Wife,
back to me on that.
because I was trying to think
I
of
don't
the
know if I
consider.
would say now. You got some brother. I would say now if you had asked me who one of my favorite actresses is, I could come up with that. But greatest Christmas movie.
What do I'm trying to think. I'm a Christmas movie person. So I love any read like any redo of A Christmas Carol. Hate to see me coming because I'm coming to see it. I want to see every version of A Christmas Carol. Every version. I want the white folks version. I want the Latinx version. I want the Asian version. I want poor people version. I want the black version. I want it with music, dancing, and singing. I want the cartoon version. The Christmas Carol do me like I love it. So, but I love the Nutcracker that has been on Netflix. I think that's a fun one. I love a different. I'm glad that they have done a different story because I'm tired of them telling the same story as well. I think The Preacher's Wife. You gotta like The Preacher's Wife at Christmas.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Uh, yeah, so and then Babes in Toyland, which is super old and super white, but I grew up on it, so it's very nostalgic. And anything, so yeah.
I don't think I
Yeah,
ever heard
that
you.
was good. And I do of some of the newer ones, and I call it newer. It's probably that Best Man Holiday
Yes, that's a good
Okay.
one.
Yeah, that's a really good
of
one.
the newer ones. So yeah, I would agree with Sean, but I just like just most of them in terms of that. So
Yeah, I think it was funny because I think me and my friends were talking about this sometime last week, and we're debating like what makes a Christmas movie a Christmas movie. Of course, like we threw
A
the
Christmas,
Preacher's Wife, Best Man Holiday. We also threw in like Friday After Next, and now what you saying, Sean?
a Christmas tree. If it has a Christmas tree in it and they going shopping to get one Christmas tree or I sit in the background, it's a Christmas movie. I don't argue with somebody else. I ain't got no time for
And so boom, so that's what started the criteria. Cause I was like, do we count Friday After Next? Like the third Friday. Do we count that as being a Christmas movie? And I said, absolutely. The villain Santa Claus, they trying to hustle on Christmas time. We also asked why did I get married part one? Why did I get married part one when they went to the log cabin? We were just going through the criteria. We were just going through the criteria. But yeah, I think that Preacher's Wife is a good
Okay,
safe bet.
I gotta add some more criteria.
Yeah, add some more criteria right now. Go ahead.
There has to be a black Santa Claus somewhere. Somewhere. And it can't make me sad. So there's also that. Christmas movies are uplifting.
Okay.
well,
I'll give
And
you
it's gotta stay and you can't end in another season. Like it's gotta be in the same season. Like the show has to start and end in Christmas.
Home Alone is a Christmas movie.
Yeah,
Yes?
does it end in Christmas? Yeah.
excuse me.
Yeah.
But it's also a movie about child neglect.
Which one is it?
Home
Home Alone.
Alone. 1, 2 are
Now another kind of classic would be in more modern times is This Christmas.
Yeah, this
yeah.
Christmas.
But it get them they play it so much, I'm so over I'm so over it. Oh, you never will be. Go sit down.
They were drinking to Chris Brown. So we get it. Chris Brown is an icon. We love him. Come on now. Give us more break. Thank you. Thank you. All right, Sean. So I'll move on to you now. So put me on, the Reverend Palmer. Put me on. Who you listening to? What
Okay.
you watching?
So, well, what am I? Okay, so let me start with music. So right now, you know that Kalani and Alex Isley have me in a chokehold musically and sonically. So like I am playing a lot of Kalani and Alex Isley, who's one of the Isley's children, and her music is just so. It reminds me of an artist that you put me on to, Vontae, that a few years back, and I really enjoyed basically like the sound waves and energy waves of the music. It was a West Coast artist. I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but it was an artist that you put me on to.
Is it
So I'm
Janae?
into them right now. If I were to move over to gospel music, I am not I am a fan. I'm listening to Jonathan McReynolds quite a bit. So like I have I have Jonathan on standby, and then I've been listening to a lot of Sarah Vaughan in jazz. Like
Mm-hmm.
Sarah Vaughan is kind of my jazz artist. And I just came back from the Nicki Minaj concert, so I know, yeah, I don't care what people say, but I was there. And again, like I've always been a female rapper fan. Like even as a kid, like I love Salt and Pepper and Queen Latifah and MC Lyte and Rod Digger. Like I loved all of that. So for me, Megan Thee Stallion is still a favorite, a fan fave. But also, I have, given Glorilla a
Yeah,
good set
before.
of listening. And so just learning to listen into Glorilla, I like her. I am excited how Memphis music is in our ear. And then there's a guy, I think he's from Texas, I've been listening to, but I cannot. It's like a bunch of letters put together, like big blah 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 something Texas. But I like his music, and
Is it like Big X the plug or something
huh?
like that? It's like Big X the
Yeah,
plug or
Big
something
L,
like
Son the Plug.
that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know. That's a little too new for me.
yeah. So I mean, because it reminds me of Chopped and Screwed, which was real popular when I was in grad school. So a lot of things, if they hit a nostalgic button, they like if they are bridges between kind of old and new. I really appreciate that. Like and particularly thoughtfully done. Like it has to have intention. So
Like
okay, so that's
like John Baptiste.
I guess.
Okay.
Okay. On television, I am watching Abbott Elementary. I have found the English teacher, which is hilarious because it's a Southern show about DEI and high schools and and being in the South. Like it's hilarious, but it is off the beaten path. I just started watching the new Matlock, and I
Kevin
really,
Gates is in
really
there, right?
love what Kathy Bates has done with that
Yeah.
character and where it's going. And then I am into. There's one more thing I'm into right now. One more show. Reasonable Doubt. I love Reasonable Doubt, which is another kind of show. And then I've thrown it back to The Good Fight, which is a secondary show to The Good Wife about a black law firm in the middle of kind of the Black Lives Matter movement. And so I've been rewatching episodes of that, but I binge watch political TV. Like anybody who knows me knows that I will binge watch. I will fall asleep. Like I watch political television like people watch football. So I have to be stopped at some point. So that's what I've been up to on those fronts. In terms of like what I'm doing in terms of like hobbies, I'm reading Soil by I can't think of the name of the authors by, but she's out of Colorado, family moved to Colorado. It's about land and what to put on land and racism and environmental justice, like is doing all of those things. So I'm reading that book. I just bought Ta-Nehisi Coates' The Message, but I done gave away 2 copies already. One for a birthday present, and then another
Yeah,
to our pastor who came and spoke today. So I'm gonna buy another one and try to hold on to that copy. But
yeah.
I love Ta-Nehisi Coates, although Kiese Lehman probably is my favorite contemporary writer right now. I mean, he just wrote an article about him having cancer, and it's really quite profound because it's a profound article about not having access to healthcare, and really it had me in prayer. His writing is so deep; it reminds me of scripture. It's very thoughtful and very much, and he just goes to deep places without meaning to go. I don't know if he means to go there, but his writing is just, it feels like I'm talking to my classmate. And then hobbies, fashion, real big into fashion. So right now I'm trying to figure out how to do high-low design, like how to do friction in fashion, because that's a big trend right now. And then continuing on, like, after coming back from South Africa this summer, I've really been kind of on like an African, like adding African touches to my wardrobe in every way. So like today I have on like cufflinks that my son gave me that are Gullah Geechee inspired, and this cufflink is an Adinkra symbol from from West Africa and Ghana, and so this one is very popular among preachers because this one means without it, there is nothing except God. So this one is Yame, and so I'm very grateful. So shout out to Zachary. So yeah, so that's kind of what I've been up to.
Yeah, I remember we talked last week about the cufflinks, and I was like, because then I know I told you this too. 'Cause I remember I told you I have that tattooed on me also. So when I seen that, I was like, "Whoa!" I just like
Yeah,
that's why one of my characters. Hold it very dear.
it's a good one. It means you meant to be a preacher.
Okay.
I'm like, I know you got 20 professional hats. I'm telling you, I ain't trying to do the world to fool you yet. Not yet. Okay. My last part, my little put me on section like, dude, is like, me personally, I know I don't like to use the word complaining at all, like people who do complain. But I like to say, let's put it on blast. So like, what's something right now that you want, like, kind of wanted to get off your chest, like voice of frustration, or something that just kind of just grinds your gears?
White supremacy
That's all I was getting.
and
um,
all the
vote voter suppression and voter barriers and systemic issues surrounding all of that of not wanting people to vote.
right, and therefore put gerrymandering.
Yeah.
That pisses me off.
Yeah,
See, put PMO, it can be piss me off, but it also can be put me.
it's a lot of everything. It's a good play on words. Kudos to the guy who came up with that concept. But no, I think that's funny because
I,
I know
I
yes.
spent
I'm sorry,
so I
Rachel.
spent a lot of I spent a few days last week making sure that seniors or seasoned citizens in our community could had a way to go to the polls and to be supported at the polls, because we are in an electronic age. And then a few weeks before that, since the voting deadline to register to vote for the November 5th election was October 7th in Georgia, spending time with particularly seniors or those who have some type of impairment that doesn't allow them to be able to, they're not mobile to go to the polls, making sure they completed their absentee ballot request in time in order to receive the actual ballot. But personally, going to their homes, filling it, helping them fill it out, having them sign, and personally taking it to the elections office. Because when you live in these smaller communities, it's sometimes a little bit different. Even if you are mobile, you don't have any public transportation to take to get anywhere.
Yep, yep. And I think for us, it's the same with the students. Like the same crisis is happening with students. Like me, starting as early as last spring, we were in conversation. Students thought they were going to come and hear cute little hot topics, but we wanted to tell them what was up next, like what you are going to have to learn to be responsible for. And so, and voting is not something that you can take for granted, even if you don't vote the way I want you to vote. And so, and and let me just go and say this: go Kamala. So I don't know what y'all want. So and again, like I think it's a difficult moment to because there's a lot of misinformation. Got lots of
Yeah.
friends who are political
Yeah,
strategy who talk about it, but like it's frustrating in this moment to do this work because it's going to have to take a number of us overpowering a system to correct
yeah,
the ways in which the system is yielding a very a system that only empowers a small percentage of wealthy white folks, right? So
absolutely.
that's what PMOs mean.
Yeah, so I'm gonna piggyback off of that because I'm pretty sure I told you a recent time ago, but like, so I have a new hobby I like to do occasionally, and it's called being a troll on social media. So of course I'll go through, like social media, like celebrities, like topics. So like for instance, like for most of this year, I was combating white people and who are new the WNBA fans now, who are all of a sudden fans of women's basketball. But Caitlin Clark is a new phenomenon. I'm combating YT people about the WNBA, like the other great legends of the game before, and also trying to get rid of that narrative of white players against Angel Reese and black people against CC Caitlin Clark. And also, I found myself the other day
Mhm.
like back to the election back to the election part. Cause I just I'm just arguing with people on social media, but I think it just be like the celebrities who are like so misinformed and they're like spilling like the wrong information to the younger people who are so sustainable to this stuff. Like somebody on the shade room was like, "Yeah, I'm voting for Trump because when he was president, we had a lot of money coming in and revenue and all this." And I'm like, firstly, that's Obama's economy that he adopted and took over and then ruined. Yeah, so
Ruined.
For sure. And I try,
Yes.
I know my limitations, guys, but you know what? Let me get on social media for like 10 minutes too. Like, let me take a break from it. But that's one that has been peeing me off. PMO. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, social media will pee you off. I mean,
Yeah.
I think if you talk politically around this topic for a little lot for too much time, you get me talking about, well, there are celebrities who are on the right side of history, right? Like there are. But we platform the celebrities who are these outliers. And they're outliers in general for most African Americans. I don't know why we're not in charge of the platforms. And so, like, just to shout out to the Native Podcast with Angela Rye and Gillum and all of
Yeah.
those beautiful folk over there, Lisa, like just amazing folk over there. But there's a way in which legacy media is platforming folks who got a lot of misinformation. Here's another piece that has burned my grits this week. Black men are not voting or not going to vote for Kamala. We're the second highest voting bloc in the Democratic Party. Higher than white women, higher than white men. And to be fair, the Democratic Party should be being led by black hands, black male and black female hands. And so to create this notion that we're somehow not going to vote for her is really bat crazy. I'm not bat crazy. And I don't enjoy the last few weeks of having to sit in that argument. And I'm reminded of Toni Morrison in this moment. The goal of racism is to get you off the task. And a lot of us got to operate like coaches and be like, get back in the game. And that is dumb. Don't pay no attention to that. You know that's not true. So let's go.
The point of all of that is to get people off message, right? To people who stir up trouble and to get you talking and fussing about some other particular topic, because that's not even an issue, right? It's
Yeah.
not an issue, but it was made an issue and we fell into it, but it had to be, I guess, addressed. But you're right. You're the second largest voting bloc for Democrats.
We're the most
Consistent.
progressive men in the country. The
So
most.
yeah,
Black men are the most progressive men in the country, period.
so that
By
was just
voting.
that was just to get people off message because we all know who they should have been focusing on.
Right. And like, so pulling Obama out here to come wag his fingers at black folks when white conservative media is continuing to platform black men who are against her as like some cute thing is unnecessary. It's unfair. It's not like we didn't cause the election to win to lose. Like we did not. We voted for Hillary. Now we voted for Obama more because Obama looked like us. But Hillary did not have the campaign that Kamala has, where she has a whole agenda for black men, right? And that agenda affects me, it affects my brother, it affects you, Vontae, it affects families, like it affects
Yeah.
Deidre's family. Like all of that's like this is the first time in history, and we have had black politicians leading who Kamala as a Howard woman, an NPHC woman. There are other things to attack her on, but this ain't one of them.
Yeah.
Her blackness is not up in air. And every time I hear the arguments being made, I hear colorism. I hear sadness in the depths and the corners of your eyes, Zora Neale Hurston would say. I hear people trying to be cute. But I don't listen. I'm gonna say it like this. I don't got time for coons. I don't have time. There's too much at stake.
Yeah.
And to talk about the voting, think about this. They're not bringing up issues like the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act that was created in
Come on.
2021. And let me see, we're in 2024, right? And that's
Yeah.
still not passed. So when you look at that, because it's talking about really having the federal government still be an overseer, because we know, particularly in red states, but definitely in southern states, they have to have overseeing because we see what historically has happened.
Right.
They're not going to oversee, not
Right.
in a way that's favorable for those who have been disenfranchised.
They will oversee like a plantation. And
Yes.
not going backwards.
So
We're going forward.
so let's talk about why, if voting is so important for everybody in the country, why is that not passed?
Right. And why wouldn't you want that? Well, because if we are to be honest, in places like the South, where Black people are number 20 to 30% of the populations, in places like Mississippi and Louisiana, particularly places like New Orleans, right, or more, where they are large, they outpace other areas, other folks, then that means that they would have say in all of the governance. They would have say in the way things work. And places like North Carolina, like even here on the coast, are gerrymandered to keep white conservative politicians in play. And they'll run every negative ad. They'll be like, wedge issue on LGBTQIA. Don't let that. We want everybody to have freedom. We want everybody to have access. And we all got queer cousins, brothers and sisters, and family members. And we love them. And we love them, right? I'm not going to let that be a wedge issue for me just because you think that is cute and to get up and say crazy stuff, right? And what I have loved is that the opposition research around kind of progressive candidates is so hilarious that it lets me know who to vote for. So they'll be like, you don't want a woke agenda, do you? And I'm like, yeah, I want a woke agenda. Who is that candidate? Yes, I will vote for them.
Yeah. So when you ready to start talking about some real issues, yeah, come and see me, because what's crazy is not passing the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act of 1921. And when we think about it historically, we really, as a people, have just gotten the right to vote somewhat consistently in 1965. So even though Black men had the right to vote in the 1800s with the 15th Amendment, but we saw all of that was rescinded, right?
On the
With
plantation, I said on the plantation called the South, where they be over.
it was rescinded. Going back to what you said, Sean, when they saw those numbers and we started having people in Congress after Reconstruction, it's
Yeah,
like, hold up, wait a minute. Isn't that what the
right,
song say? So here we come with Plessy versus Ferguson and
right,
Jim Crow. So yeah,
right. And Project 2025 is Jim Crow Jr. or Jim Crow the fourth,
Oh, on
right?
steroids. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is, but it is. We need to be really clear in this moment that agenda is real, and it is nothing to play with. Nothing to play with.
and what people are not realizing, it's not just going to affect Black people, right?
No,
It's
No, that
affecting everybody. Just like people are not understanding that the Civil Rights Bill of 64 wasn't just for Black people. It was anybody who was disenfranchised. We know that white women benefited the most from that civil rights bill in terms of employment, a lot of different opportunities. But
right. Fantastic.
people who had disabilities, it's so many people and populations and demographics that benefited from the voting civil rights bill of 1964. So I don't know why, again, going back to what you said, Sean and Devontae, about the misinformation, right? See, misinformation causes confusion, right?
And chaos allows
That's
for
right.
to take over.
That's right.
And in this moment, we have to be vigilant.
That's
We
right.
we have to listen to folks who are have the best interest of not just one part of us. And sometimes celebrity culture has the best interest of folks who make $1 million. And I
mhm.
don't make $1 million. And I don't know if anybody else on this call make $1 million. And our grandparents and aunts and uncles and elderly folk, our brothers and sisters in jail, our trans brothers and sisters, our friends who are trans, all of those people don't have access. So when I see a celebrity say crazy stuff that is against our country, I don't have a thought about whether I need to talk to them. Like I'm not Like, you just in a different class bracket, and we also know that, and you probably are being paid. And remember, like, this ain't the first time we saw this. Like, when Trump first won, he pulled out 2 black women from Fayetteville who were, I can't remember that. It's like Pumpkin and Betty or something, something crazy. Pumpkin and Betty. Jackie and Joanne. I don't know the name of them ladies, but I remember them, and it was such fun. It was hilarious to watch
It was
until it
Diamond and Silk.
was working the pole.
Working the pole.
So I don't have time for this. I don't have time for it. I'm not listening. And I've had to, and in my own family, I have had to say, go vote, go vote. If you care about me, if you want to know how things get bad, how cultural centers get dismantled. Let's go there for a second. How black people don't have access to universities. How black folks have these high recidivism rates. How black folks have bad maternal outcomes, particularly black women who are having children. This is how it happens. Politics. And as my homegirl, Deborah Maxwell says, who's the president of the NAACP here in the state of North Carolina, if you're not at the table, you own the menu.
Okay.
And I'm not edible. So.
That's something that's natural. Definitely, definitely. I know that's right. We're not the little Negroes over here at all. At all, at all.
And hey, you can cut this part. I've got to go in about 5 minutes.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. What I end up doing, I still have Palmer on, so I can just ask. I have probably like 2 more questions to ask. So of course, so this explain like when. So what is the ABCC conference? Where's it gonna be at? What we're gonna learn there? Granted, I know my experience is much different from anyone else's who's listening, but yeah, I'm gonna do my ABCC plug-in now.
Well, we encourage every annual conference. This year, it is November the 7th through the 10th in Charleston, South Carolina. Shout outs and big ups to our VP for the ABCC, Sean Palmer, who's been very instrumental in helping us secure some individuals in the area who can tie us into and educate us more about the Gullah Geechee corridor, history, heritage, which is our focus in terms of DAH, seeds. It's going to be very engaging and enlightening experience for all. And one of the things that I would love to say about ABCC, I was trying to think back and count. I think it will probably be maybe my 9th or 10th. You have to help me on that, Sean, in terms of ABCC conference that I've been able to attend. And the reason I keep coming back to this conference is because the first time I came to the conference, I knew I was home. So as Sean said, Encore, yeah, that's nice. NASPA, yeah, that's nice. ACPA, all of that, that's nice. But ABCC is home.
Yeah. And we invite cultural center folks and folks who do work in our area to be there, but we also invite, like, our conference is nuanced, right? Because we are an intimate group of professionals. And so you get to have lots of cool conversations. Our attire is very often African centered. So you will see folks walking around unapologetically black, and the depth of conversation that you can have with colleagues who have master's degrees, PhDs, bachelor's degrees, junior college degrees, and depending on which school they're at, is really quite fun and interesting and engaging. Our lineup includes Kevin Powell, who's in the Gullah diaspora, but who's raised in New Jersey and New York, but his entire family is from the Chuck. It includes LaRonda Manigault Bryant, who is from Moncks Corner, South Carolina, has a book on Gullah Geechee culture, and she is the director of the Stone Center at UNC Chapel Hill. It includes one of Deirdre's good folks. Deidre, tell them about Dr. Toby.
Dr. Toby Jenkins is from Columbia, South Carolina, and she talks a lot about DEI and hip hop from an academic perspective. So she will be there to enlighten us on that, and she's delighted and very excited about coming to the ABCC conference. Sean, do you want to mention You want the
Oh
chef
yeah, the sister
Yeah.
chefs. We have two, a mother and daughter chef team. Sister Jenkins
Jenkins?
and her daughter, Sister Jenkins, who are chefs. They were suggested by our good friend, Chef Amethyst Ganaway, who's a major culinary artist in Charleston, in Gullah Geechee corridor. And they're going to talk about all the food things that we eat, from shrimp and grits to purloo, all the different rice dishes. And so again, like, you're gonna see you're gonna get all of those kinds of things at the conference. We have community service as a part of our conference. We're headed to the International African American Museum. We're headed to Mother Emanuel. We're headed to the Avery Institute. We have speakers from the Penn Center, from Avery Institute, from the Gullah Geechee Corridor. Our executive director will be there. We have young voices who are doing comics. We have a vendors fair. Like, it is going to be a fun time. And our hospitality suites be fun. So we're doing a Can I Kick It, which is a paint and sip, and on hip hop music, classic hip hop music. And we're doing footness classes. Everybody say footness. We're doing footness classes in the morning, and we're really excited. And me and Deirdre, the thing that me and Deirdre love to do is give people stuff. And so we ain't even finished figuring it out yet. But what they gonna get from us is they're gonna have more stuff to take away than we can find. That's what we gonna tell you. Like, cause we love to make a little cute basket of things for everybody.
Yes. Actually, too about the ABCC for sure. So where do we go to register? Where do we go to support? Where do we go to get all the good details?
Yeah, you can go to www.abcc.net. Shout out to Manuel Lloyd for just redoing our website and his business. So we are very happy about our new website, and our sister, our good friend, our treasurer, basically our treasurer on the board, Dr. Ann, is handling, Ann Edwards from Purdue University, who's the director of the Purdue University Black Cultural Center, is handling the budget. And she has, you can pay with credit card, you can pay by check, you can become a member of ABCC. There are so many things to do. And if you just want to come to hear Kevin Powell speak, it's $65 a ticket plus food. Okay, because we're gonna feed you, because that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna feed you in several different ways, and you'll get to hear from them. A lot of our speakers are bringing their books, so you get to buy gifts for your family members, and add to your libraries. And Kevin has a new book out about him and his mother, who's a Gullah woman, and how they moved to New York and New Jersey, and how he was raised in that area. So again, like, there are some really good things that we're proud about. We still got hotel rooms available for right now, but Black people are last minute. We imagine that we're gonna get really close to selling out our hotel rooms, but we want to tell people, come on, come see us, come on down here.
Yeah.
Please come on home.
Yeah, welcome home.
Yes.
And we're
Yes.
on Instagram, we're on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, all of the ABCC. If you look for ABCC, you'll find it.
Yes. I'm a big
All
follower.
right,
A big
y'all, I
supporter.
gotta go.
Yes, you're fine. I'm actually going to
My
conclude the
sister,
episode now.
All right,
Yeah. Thank you
appreciate
for
you.
coming on. I
You
really
know you're
appreciate
welcome to
it.
give me a call if you need something else.
I sure
Okay,
will.
call me
Thank
if you
you.
need anything
Appreciate
else.
you.
All right.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Still there?
yeah. Do you have more questions?
I think that's kind of my last bit of questions. Well, now with you being in here now, what's next in store for you or anything? I know you mentioned a lot of
Yeah,
transition.
so we're gonna get to this conference. It's on the heels of the election, and then we will circle back. Gonna spend some time with family and just taking some time to. I'm doing some consulting work as we speak and enjoying the church in the holiday season, Kwanzaa, Christmas, all of the things. Celebrating students who are graduating from UNCW, celebrating, fraternity holidays. I celebrate my 25th anniversary in the House of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And so just going to do some reflecting and taking some time to build out positive ritual for a life well lived, right? So, like, that's what I'm doing. And these are the things that and really kind of working on my passion project.
Yes, brother. Well,
Yeah.
I want to thank you. I would definitely want to thank you for coming on the show. I know we had a lot of technical difficulties in the beginning, but of course, I'm forever grateful for all the support that I get from you, people in your reach
Oh,
also.
you always got it, dear brother. You
Yes,
always
yes, yes.
got it, and I'm glad to see you fly. May the show be a blessing and blessed, and may it build out opportunity beyond your wildest dream. And we're excited, and thank you for being a presenter at our conference. Thank you for inviting us to be on your show. Thank you for supporting and going down when we were doing preliminary work, and we look forward to your success as well. So when you get the podcast ready to go, we'll send it out to the board. We'll send it out to all of our partners across the state of North Carolina and throughout the Gullah Geechee corridor.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, I don't thank y'all for tuning in today, and thank you for being a guest as always. Y'all be blessed.